Hi, I'm Dana. I've been oversharing all sorts of stuff online lately, especially on my YouTube, but I don't feel like I've been sharing like the stuff that lets you get to know me as a person. And like a lot of you guys talk to me in the comments, and I feel like I'm getting to know you guys to some degree. And I thought it'd be nice to let you get to know me as a person a little bit. So I've changed my little light that I use to be warm. I've changed my laptop screen to be warm just in case that makes any difference. I've got this lovely hot chocolate and a double chocolate cookie. And I'm ready to like answer some questions and talk about myself a bit. So my first question's from David, and he asked, where do I go for my vintage clothes? And the short story would be charity shops. I don't mind digging through like barrels upon barrels of crap to find the good piece essentially. Like I'll spend 7 hours in one place to just find like 2 items that I really like. Other than charity shops, we are lucky in Liverpool to have a lot of like really cool vintage places. I've bought quite a few things from Soho's on Bold Street if anyone's around here. They do like 3 items for 20 quid from certain rails. And they're really good items. Like I got a 70s like snakeskin patterned like flared dress thing with a sick collar and the matching belt still, along with, what else did I get? A pair of 90s dead stock corduroy pants and an 80s jumper that I wore it a few videos ago, the blue and green one. That one as well. Got all three of them for 20 quid. It's such a bargain. For those of you that don't live where I live, I've used Vinted a couple of times and I didn't totally hate it. However, we've already approached that I'm a cheapskate, which means that them being like, we charge you extra to ship it to your house and not a drop-off point, I'm not paying extra just for convenience. But that also means that I'm then inconvenienced when I have to go and pick my parcel up from somewhere. I wanted to use Depop originally, and I don't understand Depop. Like some people just don't mention shipping in the like description of the item, and then some people are like, oh, DM me for shipping. And I'm like, just tell me how much I need to pay you. Like, don't fuck with me. Just tell me how much I need to pay you. So I don't like Depop a lot, but Vinted's a lot more like set out and clear. I just don't like that I have to go out of my house to pick up my stuff. I've also spent a lot of time looking at vintage clothes on Etsy. I've only made one purchase so far. And finally, Facebook Marketplace. But Facebook Marketplace it's a weird one. Like again, this could just be that I live in Liverpool and we have some like very unique characters. But I got 2 vintage 60s or 70s like coats. Really nice thick coats with like one's wool and one's, I think it's suede with fur. So like I don't love that I'm wearing an animal, but it's vintage and it was free. But like they literally just listed them and I went and picked them up, and I've just got these 2 awesome vintage coats that I literally paid nothing for. And then the other one, I'll link it again. Oh, is it this side? I'll link it again because I went to a house clearance to pick up a wardrobe and ended up just getting the contents of the wardrobe. So stuff like that just seems to like happen to me every now and again. It's rare, it's really rare. But when it happens, it's so magical. Cottage Curvin asked if I have any tattoos or piercings. And I have my ears pierced, which is incredibly boring, I know. But at one point I was stretching them and I got them up to like, I want to say 8mm, because I wanted like a full centimetre in there and I never got to it. So I think I got to 8mm and it was taking so long. Because like I didn't want to rush it, I wanted to like be sensible and do it properly and that. And it just took forever. Like I was literally waiting like 9 months to a year between each size because I put the taper in with like all of my balm and all that. And it didn't want to go through. And I'd do that like every weekend. It'd be a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. And it just took months. And then when I was on holiday, they fell out. I lost the earrings, they fell out. And I was like, oh, I cannot be bothered anymore. So that's the end of my piercing stories. I've got a few tattoos and I really want more, but the guy that I've like gotten all of my good tattoos from moved back to Spain. And like on the one hand I'm like, yes, get out of the UK, like do it, yeah, it's good for you. And on the other hand I'm like, so you just like do things to my skin and then leave me, like. But shall I go in order? Okay, my first 2 tattoos are a bit dodgy. Is it the other leg? I don't remember where my own tattoos are. Okay, my first tattoo was this one. It's 9 in Quenya. It's the Lord of the Rings tattoo. I love Lord of the Rings. And then I got this one, which is a bit less self-explanatory. You know the TV show House with Hugh Laurie? It's one of my favourites. It's such a good show. So I was like, well, it's House MD. Like, I think it's a really funny pun, and no one else thinks it's funny or understands it. So glad that's on my body forever. Then I got my X-Files tattoo, and obviously that's like my first big for me tattoo. And it meant that I went to my artist with like 9 million ideas. I was like, if I'm spending this much money and getting a tattoo this big, I want to just force every idea I've ever had for a tattoo into one. And like I say, the guy I was going to was fantastic. And they came up with like 2 different designs for me. And the other one was also super fucking cool. The other one was like an alien head with I want to believe instead of the truth is out there. And it had like all stuff going on inside it. It was so cool. But I went with, it makes it sound like I was on Tattoo Fixers. I think they just did me 2 designs because they could tell I was like absolutely shitting it, but also wanted like a cool tattoo. But I chose this one because it's a little cat getting abducted instead of a, I was about to say instead of a moo, instead of a cow like it normally is. And I don't know, it's just got the vibe I like, and I feel like it sort of comes across like a little bit Simpsons-y in the colour scheme and that. He let me choose the colours. He was such a good tattoo artist. I'm so sad he's gone. This is the pose we're going for. Then I got this tattoo. It's a lit, like, I wanted it to look both lit and unlit depending on how you sort of looked at it kind of thing. And this is the only tattoo where I was very like, no, I know what I want. I just need you to understand what I want. But again, my tattoo artist worked with me until it was something we were both happy with, and he trusted like the way it looked and the placement of his art, and it was what I wanted. And it just says, I'm cold as a match, ready to strike. It's a Foo Fighters lyric. It's from Something from Nothing, isn't it? Jodie. My cat loves the Foo Fighters, didn't you know? And then, because as established, we really like the Foo Fighters, I got Dave's guitar on my arm. This is still one of my favourite tattoos. I spent probably 6 years, like, constantly be like, I'm gonna get that one day, that's the tattoo I really want, I'm gonna do it. And the first place I went to was like, oh, that'd be like £800, it's such like a complicated tattoo. And I think I paid like $350 in the end. I'm not sure, but I love it. I kind of want to do like a proper tattoo video at some point and like show them off properly and talk about like the whole story behind them and stuff. I don't know, let me know if you'd be interested. They also asked what my fave meal is. If you're talking meals that I make, I really love noodles with the Bird's Eye Lean Cuisine, like fake chicken tender grill things, and just as many veggies as you can shove in. If you're talking like going out meal or like my like death row final meal, there's a place near where I live called Planet Vegan, and they do a cheeseburger that tastes almost exactly like a Big Mac, with the most amazing crispy fries ever. Oh, Jodie, I'm not your bread, honey pie. And they also do like KFC chicken finger type things with gravy. That. And then Jen over at Jenny B Vegan. Highly recommend following if you want to see some like delicious looking vegan food. Asked what my favourite vegan restaurant is. Ties in perfectly. Planet Vegan. Like, I don't think any of my followers really live in Liverpool, but if you do, Planet Vegan is so good. Like, even if you're a meat eater, I think they're the best. Like, all the flavours and the textures, and their menu has so much on it. Like, they're relatively new, but their menu is huge. And everything we've tried has been amazing. Nervous Cyclist also asked a few questions, which, thank you. So I'm going to put them here and just answer them like as I go through, rather than saying it's them each time, you know. Ooh. The first thing I asked is, do I prefer English or Danish culture? And it's interesting because I'm like, sorry, I'm getting really cozy. I'm like forgetting that it's like a video. They're very different in some ways and very, very similar in others. Like, bear in mind, I lived in Denmark from when I was just before I was 11 until just before I was 14. So like about 3 years. And With hindsight, I pick up on a lot more than I did at the actual time because I was too busy just like hating being in a new country. But looking back now, I think that like the culture for adults especially is a lot more laid back. Like you still gotta go to work, there's still stress and all that. But I feel like the culture surrounding like holidays and like in the summer you just take time off and spend it with your family. And like Christmas is very much all about spending time with family in a very different way than it is with British people. But at the same time, being autistic, I feel like at least some of the English like cultural things have at least sunk into my brain to a point where I vaguely pick up on them and understand them to a point. Whereas with Denmark, I was constantly on edge because I did not understand like all the little cultural things, and it's like I say, it's tricky. There's I try very hard to like appreciate and learn about and enjoy other cultures, but honestly, I think I am sort of British through and through. You know, like even with my dad being Danish, I think I'm very like suited and settled with Britain. Yeah, I try not to be a gammon or anything. I don't think Tory, but I do really love the UK. So yeah, I think hypothetically, like I prefer the idea of Danish culture, but realistically, I'm much more comfortable and really much more of a follower of British culture. They also asked what my favourite type of stim is, and I've got a few at the minute. Because one's just dancing badly, like a mixture of dad moves and just jumping up and down. That's my stim for like when I'm overwhelmed, like when I'm about to go out or when I just get in. That's a nice one. And another stim that I only recently realised that I use as a stim, because I do yoga every morning, I'm one of those people. And every now and again, I just sort of like do my own thing rather than following one on YouTube. And you know when you're in downward dog and they have you like stretch out your legs like by bending one knee at a time and just like stretching the heel of your foot towards the floor? I could just do that all day. Like there's a lot of things like that where it's like a repetitive motion that you're meant to just do a couple of times, and I'm like, no, I'm in this for the next hour. Oh, they also asked for what my favourite book is, and I haven't read properly in ages. Like, I hit a reading slump when I was like 17 that I've just never properly dug my way out of, and it's kind of sad. My favourite book since I was like about 14 has been The Story Sisters by Alice Hoffman. It's one of those books where like every time I've read it, I've like got a different feel from it and understood different parts of it. It was well too heavy a book for me to be reading at 14. And then more recently, I haven't, like I say, I've not read many books in a while, but I recently devoured a book called Drama Queen. And the writer, like I follow her on Twitter, she sent me the book because she's lovely. But there's a whole bit in the book about how people always say her name wrong, so now I'm kind of, I don't know how to say it, but I think it's Sarah? Sarah? I'm not saying it right. So, her last name's Gibbs. I'll link to like where you can buy a book, follow her on Twitter, all that kind of stuff, because it's a fantastic book. May not be able to say her name, but damn, it's basically like autobiographical. She's basically just written a bunch about like her life in childhood as like an undiagnosed autistic woman and girl, and it's just mad relatable. It's so relatable, and she's so funny and quirky and like all sorts of great things. It was a really good read. I didn't want to put it down. I didn't want to stop reading it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a really great book. I'm really glad she sent it to me. It's very nice of her. Ooh, and they asked, what is something you really want to experience, see, or do? The first thing that popped into my mind is so nerdy, but there's an exhibition that's going to be touring the UK next year that's like the science behind the things in Doctor Who. Oh boy. Like, I will be at that every day. And if we're gonna go really big on that one, I want to see the pyramids. Like, I had such a heavy Egyptian phase when I was a kid. I love the mummy. I'd really love to see the pyramids and the Sphinx and all that stuff. And I know that like Pete's right in front of it now and all that, so it's not as magical as I imagine. But I'd still just love to have seen it, you know. Adastra Borealis. That's my favourite username I've heard in a while. But they asked what's my favourite decade for vintage fashion. And I don't feel like it should be as tricky as it is, because everything I wear is from the 80s and the 90s. I've got a couple of pieces from the 60s or 70s, mostly 70s. but almost everything I wear is from like the 80s or 90s. But if it was easier to find stuff from the 60s and 70s, I think I would probably be a little more into that. I really prefer the colour scheme that came around in the 60s and 70s and like the freedom of it. But then, like saying that, I'm just like, but the puff sleeves and the big shoulders and the big hair and the like little cinch waist with the big hips, like, it's the 80s for me all over. I love the 80s. I have no idea how to try to pronounce this username. I'm very sorry. But this person asked what I might say to my 18-year-old selves if I met them and they didn't know who I was. I'm like, that's deep, man. Wow. Right, for my 8-year-old self, I think my main concerns when I was 8 was that like people at school didn't like me, and I vaguely thought my parents hated me because they like told me off and told me to do things, you know, like parents do. So I was gonna talk to like little 8-year-old me, I'd probably just be like, hon, your parents aren't being mean, they're looking after you, so give them a break. And there's more to life than people liking you. Like, just focus on the ones that do and stop trying to chase the ones that don't, you know? 8-year-old me wouldn't have listened, 8-year-old me wouldn't have given a shit, but there you go. 18 was a time for me because my dad died and I went back to college for a second time and dropped out of college again. And I felt a lot of things, felt a lot of feelings. And I think if I was going to talk to myself at that age, probably tell myself to stop trying to like do what other people do, stop trying to fit in and stop trying to be anything that I'm not. Like, I was dressing really boringly and going back to college because I was like, well, other people get an education. You know, everything was about what other people do and what I should be doing instead of what I wanted to do or what I was doing. Yeah, I'd just be like, hon, do your own thing, stop it. And 18-year-old me definitely would have been like, yeah, I should do that. Like, I really just needed to kick up the arse at 18 and no one gave it to me. I had to sort it out myself years later. Their username's very long, so I'm just gonna call them BizSon because that's the first 2 bits of it. But they asked where I'm from, like country-wise. I'm just gonna do the full rundown here just to make it easier because I've already mentioned Denmark without giving you the context. So I was born in Stoke, which is like very Midlands of the UK, very in the middle. So I lived there until I was 11, and then we moved to Denmark, and then we lived in Denmark until I was 13, almost 14. And then we moved to Rhyl in Wales until I was 16, and then that was when we moved to Liverpool, where I still am currently, but I want to move. Why did I think it was an idea to read out their usernames? Why didn't I just be like, I'll just read the questions? Okay, so Sturmauch? It's not Sturmagoo, is it? Like, come on. But this lovely follower that I can't pronounce the username of asked what is my comfort music. I'm not going to lie to you, a good amount of my comfort music's the Twilight soundtrack. In specifics, I don't remember the names of any of the songs. Flightless Bird, you know, the one that's in the prom scene? The one that's right at the start when she's like driving through Forks with Charlie and it's all, when the phone bush turns white, that's when I'll come home. There's certain Foo Fighters songs, predominantly Stranger Things Have Happened, The Deeper Blues Are Black, Something from Nothing, Cold Day in the Sun, probably some others. But like the more acoustic-y tracks mostly are very like comforting to me. I find a lot of David Bowie tracks really comforting too, even though some of them have like really messed up stories in the lyrics and stuff if you listen too much into it. But Rock and Roll Suicide got me through my teen years. Like, I listened to that on repeat sometimes when I was a teenager and it was the only thing getting me through. But then like obviously Ashes to Ashes, A Life on Mars. I really love I'm really bad at titles of songs. But that Bowie song that's all like, gone, gone, the water's all gone. Mommy, come back, 'cause the water's all gone. That's a bop. Like, all of the soundtrack from Labyrinth I find really comforting because I watched that a lot as a kid. I've got a lot of comfort music. I love music. I really, really love music. And most things I listen to it's because they comfort me in some way. The final 2 questions are from Hassan, and he asked, who's my bestie? Well, you know, I have so many friends, that it can be quite hard to choose sometimes. But Hassan's my bestie. Hassan and Liz are my best friends. They're my two ride or dies, you know? Like, I pretty much have no other friends. And I used to be really down about not having many friends, but I'm at a point where, like, you know, I've got the best quality friends possible. So who cares if I've only got two? Like, Hassan is the nicest person I've ever met. I don't think I've ever been offered so much just like unconditional caring love and support from someone I'm not related to or haven't already known for many, many years. I don't want to get too soppy, but it's just so damn nice knowing that you've got a friend who, like, they've got your back. And, you know, I'd really hope that he feels like that about me. And the last question for this hopefully somewhat cozy little Q&A is the #1 item on my bucket list. Hassan already knows about this. But for me at the minute, my #1, I mean, if we were really going to play it, my #1 like bucket list item is to buy a house. But if we're talking about things that are realistic and fun, my #1 at the minute is I really want to get married in Vegas. Me and Rich have been together for like 8 years now. You know, we've been talking about marriage a bit more lately, but we're also both autistic, and I'm very anxious, and I can't think of anything worse than having a room filled with our friends and family just staring at me, like, as I walk down the aisle to Richard, and then like look at him and say things to him, while all these people just watch us and some of them cry, you know, and then we have to pay for them to eat and host a party for them, and like, just no part of a wedding sounds like fun to me. So me and Rich have basically decided that if at some point we can afford it, we want to just go out to like Las Vegas and get married by Elvis on, like, I was gonna say Madonna, I meant Marilyn Monroe, you know, like someone dressed. I don't think either Madonna or actual Marilyn Monroe are gonna like marry us, but I would like someone dressed as someone fun to do it. Ideally, Freddie Mercury. But I'll take Elvis if we can get Elvis, you know. I think we're kind of just, you know, we're not very wedding-y people. And I don't think we're really very Las Vegas-y people either. But I think we'd enjoy like the aesthetics and the lights and everything for like a day or two. And then my aim is that we would like stay in Las Vegas for a bit, get married, see the sights, and like generally just like fuck about a bit. And then drive over to California and go to LA, meet up with my friend Liz, finally get to meet her, have like a little reception party type of thing with her mates at some like bar or club or something, and just not make a whole big deal about it, you know? Like, we'd probably be spending the same amount that most people do on a fancy wedding because of the travel and stuff, but at least I'd be getting like a real experience out of it and not just a hole in Birkenhead or something, you know? I don't think I'm a very cozy person. I'm not sure how cozy this has been. More people than I expected that follow me seem to be Scandinavian some way. So I feel like it's my duty to throw in some degree of like the fact that I can speak some Danish into this video. I can't even speak English into this video. So for you guys, jeg håber det har været hyggeligt. Jeg var aldrig så godt til at sige det, men min dansk er ikke godt, det er ikke godt, og jeg kan ikke sige så meget, men det er ikke. If you've enjoyed this for some reason and you're not already, please do like and subscribe. I don't know who would watch all of this if they weren't already subscribed. I feel like you need to have some degree of knowledge of how like chaotic I am to have gotten through this. But anyway, this is a 45-minute long video. I'm gonna have to edit all of that, so I'm gonna go. So that's all from me and Jodie for today. Whoever you are and wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, week, afternoon, year, season, I don't know. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to speak you, honey pie. But I hope you're having a good time, and I'll see you again in a few days.